Contrary to popular belief, philosophy and the Bible do not mix. And the video that I'm about to show you is a good example of that. Now, I have nothing against R C Sproul, and I know that he was a good man, and he's with the Lord now. But it so happens that he was a Trinitarian. And like I teach in my videos, men of God can be awesome and wonderful and teach the Word of God beautifully. But when it comes to the Trinity, there is a huge blunder in theology and in the way that person is thinking. Now, R C Sproul wrote many books, and one of his books that he wrote is called What is Reformed Theology? And in this book, he lays out the truth that Protestant theology is Catholic theology. The doctrine of the Trinity and infant baptism that Protestants practice to this day, or believe the Trinity to this day, is coming from the Catholic Church. And why modern scholars and theologians don't admit that, I don't understand. What are they afraid of? Well, I can tell you, they're afraid of this, that if the majority of people were to know and understand that the Trinity is a Catholic doctrine, they would have question marks about it, and some of them will quickly say, I'm not going to believe in that, because they know the reputation of the Catholic Church, and they know that the Catholic Church has taken many pagan ideas and have made them part of the church. So maybe that's why they don't want to say that. But R C Sproul did tell us in What is Reformed Theology that all of these doctrines were coming from the Catholic Church. And I would love for modern Protestant theologians and scholars to be honest about this. But they're not. They keep it quiet. They keep it secret because they know the outcome of this. Now, this video that I'm showing you really points to the Logos Christology. And R C Sproul talks about brilliant men that for 300 years were reflecting on God and on Jesus Christ. He's really referring to the Catholic Church. Because if you follow my other videos, for example, Willian Lane Craig teaches that the Logos Christology was developed by the early Greek fathers who took Philo's Logos and placed it with John 1:1. If you follow R C Sproul, he mentions that the doctrine of the Trinity is coming from the Catholic Church. So then when he mentions this brilliant minds that for 300 years were reflecting on God and Jesus Christ, he's talking about the Catholic Church and philosophers. Let's get that straight right off bat. And then if you follow my other videos, you will see that it is the Ante-Nicene fathers who were Catholic and who promoted their own ideas instead of the Word of God. So that is why I make these videos, for those of you who really want to be Bible believers and not be conned into believing philosophy is part of the gospel. So let's look into this video and understand that the Logos that they are applying in John 1:1 is really the Logos of Philo of Alexandria, or the pagan Greek Logos, which was a second entity, a second God that existed next to God. God bless.
I am thinking, first of all, of church history. In this 5 verses, we have reference to the Word. And the word "word" here translates the Greek word for word, the Greek word logos or logos. And in the first 300 years of theological reflection by the strongest minds that God gifted the church with in those early centuries, Virtually the entire focus of their insight was on these 5 verses. That is what we call Logos Christology dominated the reflection of the Christian church for the first 300 years of her history. So John tells us that the Logos, who was in the beginning, was Prasch, God, with God, in this intensely close-knit relationship. But so far, what we've heard is that the Logos is being distinguished from God. There's God and then there's the Logos. There's God and the one who's with God. That would suggest, on the surface at least, 2 different entities, wouldn't it? God and somebody with God. Now you're beginning to see, well, some people count 1 plus 1, you know. But then everything explodes with the next assertion in the prologue. And the Word was God. The Logos was not only with God in the beginning, not only Prasch God face to face, but now it is said flat out, he was God. So that the deity of the Logos is clearly confessed here by John in this writing. Do you see why the church then had to go to the drawing board and say, how can we understand this? How can someone be, on the one hand, identified with God, and on the other hand, distinguished from God? So that you have an identity and a distinction. And therein came the development of Trinitarian theology.
In the beginning was the Word is referring to God speaking things into creation. And God said, but the word of the Lord endureth forever. And this is the word which by the gospel is preached unto you, being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of the incorruptible, by the word of God, which liveth and abideth forever. Forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven.